So I wanted to make a follow-up video to my last one about why nobody wants to work anymore and my own personal take on that. This follow-up video is about why it's hard to get by right now, because that's kind of an overarching theme that most people are kind of fed up with, that getting by is not even a luxury afforded to them anymore, that's like our goal now is just to get by. And I just wanted to weigh in on maybe kind of a more overarching, like broader view on why it's hard to get by right now. And I'll break it down as simply as I can. I think there's three main reasons why it's really hard to get by right now. And there's a lot of little reasons in between you can kind of point at, but I think really the main three reasons why it's hard right now is because number one, the IRS, and let me explain so before people start poo-pooing everything I'm saying, that I think the IRS, the Federal Reserve, which is central banking, and Wall Street, which is just like the over corporatization and globalization of the workforce and the economy. Um, all three of these things play a big role and a big factor as to why people are suffering right now, why people can't get by, why it's so why it's so hard just to make ends meet. Just paying your bills is seemingly out of grasp for so many people. Paying off their credit cards, paying off their debt, their bills, their car payment, etc. It really boils down to these three main factors. And so, number one, the IRS. Um, you know, I used to work at a place for 11 years, and I crunched the numbers on how much I was not giving, but having withheld by the IRS. And out of an entire month of labor, and this is just with the wages I was making in California. I'm sure people who make more have a lot more withheld, but for the wages that I was making, um, I was basically 1 week out of the entire month. One whole week of the entire month was just spent paying the government. I was just working for the government 1 week out of the entire month. That labor wasn't going to me or to anything. It was going to a hole. It was going to a deficit. It was going nowhere. It was going to an omnibus spending packet. It wasn't going to anything benefiting me. It wasn't going to anything. It was just going out of my paycheck. And I think, in my own opinion, personal opinion, I know a lot of people might disagree, but I think that uh, essentially having your wages, you know, withheld or garnished, or whatever, however you phrase it, by the government is essentially a type of indentured servitude. And I know a lot of people might not agree with that, but I think that if a month of your labor, if a quarter of that is just spent paying the government when you already have to owe at the end of the year, a lot of times, or when you pay for taxes for everything you buy, for water and food and everything else, the government doesn't just like double dip into your funds. They don't even triple or quadruple. They take money, they take from the same pool of money like over and over and over again. At a certain point, it's just like, if you're gonna just take it, you might as well just, you know, take more, because it's, you just owe at the end of the year. You pay in taxes for everything, and it's just like, it's just too much withheld. It's a type of indentured servitude, and you might disagree, but I think just follow the receipts. Um, just see it for what it is. You're working for like 1 week or longer just to pay the government. I think that's a type of indentured servitude. It's akin to a type of slavery. That might be blowing it out of proportion, but I really don't think it's not that far from reality. Obviously, we're not like on a plantation or anything like that, but it's not a long shot. I don't think it's that big of a stretch to say that it's a type of indentured servitude. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was, I'll talk about Wall Street last. Um, so the Federal Reserve, which is basically a private bank that that prints us our money and like loans it to us with interest or something. There's a whole system. I can't even really comprehend or explain it. It's absurd when you actually like dig down and see just how many roots and how many layers there are to everything, how they clean the money, how they wash the money, how they move the money, how they tax the money, how they charge, interest rates on the money. And really that's out of our grasp. We can't really like vote on that stuff. Like a lot of people say like, "Oh, you voted for inflation to go up." And really, I don't think people get to vote on any of that. I think that a lot of these decisions are made really without our consent, or a lot of times without even people knowing. It's really and really, if there's one thing I want you to take away from this, if you believe that people voted for inflation to go up, there's one thing I want you to take away from this video. Inflation by design of the US dollar was never meant to go down. It can go down. Certain policies or things that you vote for, I guess, or people you vote for, they can drive it down, but by design, the US dollar is only meant to go up in inflation. In fact, a lot of people would argue that's kind of where like the power of a fiat currency is. But really that power is misused, it's abused, it's really not even a type of power. It's just sort of a lie. I mean, the US dollar isn't backed by anything. Gold, oil, we're not on the petrodollar anymore. I don't think, with the BRICS nations and all that, and this Saudi Arabia, I don't think they're trading our dollars for our dollars for oil anymore. So our dollar's not even backed up by anything. It by design, it's not meant to go. And you could probably say like, oh, well, this year and that 1 year and during this person's presidency and that person's presidency, or this in the 80s or something, the interest rates went down, and so that's proof it goes down. It by design, it's not meant to go down. It's only meant to go up. There's nothing behind it. It's just a tool they use to just enrich themselves and just control the money. So this whole idea that people have power to vote for inflation to go up or down is you're way out of the ballpark here. We don't have any control over any of that. And so I think that food doubling and chicken costing twice as much, rent going up, and all these other things, I don't think this is in the hands of the voters. These are things that are essentially just oppressive. The central banking, it's not just the Fed, it's the interconnected, the web of like global central banks. That's making it difficult to afford things and for the spending power of our money to go down. And so lastly, I wanted to talk about Wall Street. And I don't know too much particularly about this field. I just know that we're not really in a free market economy when only like a handful of very wealthy investors and private equity firms and banks can own everything. This isn't a free market. Our whole economy has essentially been, subverted by some perverse system. This isn't really a type of like capitalism. This is some perversion. This is some subversion of what actual capitalism in a free market is. We're living in a system that has allowed a handful of people to control the majority of the wealth and to just make themselves wealthy. And some people would probably look at that and say, so what? These people on Wall Street they're smart investors. They have the capital. What's wrong with that? Really, it's hard on the labor force as well, the job market, because a lot of these private equity firms and majority shareholders, let me phrase it this way. if a business is publicly traded, they're beholden to the shareholders and their dividends and stuff like that, that a company has to remain profitable, really at the expense of just treating people like people. It affects the job market, you know, how the profit margins for these companies, they have to be beholden to the shareholders. And so there isn't really like a human factor in there. It's just sort of, these companies just serve the bottom dollar. They worship the almighty bottom dollar. And that's what dictates a lot of their decisions, their spending, their hiring, their policies, the company culture. I mean, all these things play a factor into, you know, the actual job market, why people are having trouble finding a job, or why jobs don't pay enough, or why so many jobs require you to do 2 people's or more worth of work. People are having trouble getting by right now because they're not in control of inflation. They're not in control of their dollar or their money. They're not in control of how much they make. It's everything. They're priced out of, you know, buying a house. So, and of course their wages are withheld every time they're paid. So with those 3 main elements, the IRS, which is essentially indentured servitude to the government, the Fed, or global banking, the central banking on a global scale, that's affecting people's spending power, that's affecting people's, you know, what they can acquire, what's like feasible to attain. And Wall Street, which is affecting the job market, the workforce. It's just a Ponzi scheme. It's only enriching those that are already really rich. And I don't even think I'd necessarily have a problem with that if the companies that were owned by majority portion by these private equity firms, if these companies weren't beholden to the shareholders, instead could make, you know, a risky decision, or can make a more compassionate decision about, you know, not laying off 15,000 people or something. But yeah, I mean, this is all kind of a big overarching problem. We could all look at, you know, like everything, like, because as far as like everything that's rooted like in corruption right now, we can point out everything that we can see and say, look, you know, it's hard to get a job. It's this, the chicken's double, my rent went up, inflation's gone up. You can point to all these things, but really all the places that we can't see, deep rooted in a lot of these really mischievous, you know, kind of backroom deals that we don't get to see or be a part of or hear. It's really burdening the people. So I think, again, to summarize, I'll kind of leave you with this final thought. I think the reason why people are having trouble just getting by right now are these 3 big overarching reasons. These are just broad strokes. These are not like the minutiae. They're not the tiny granular, you know, analysis of everything that's wrong, but the grand picture, the bird's eye view of this whole problem of why it's hard to get by right now is because the IRS, Wall Street, and central banking, the Federal Reserve. These are like the 3 main reasons why people are struggling, why they're oppressed, why getting by is not easy anymore. It's difficult. And with that, I'll leave you with those final thoughts. Feel free to weigh in if you'd like. I'm not trying to spark a bunch of arguments in the comment section. I will read your comments, but I'm not trying to have a big back and forth. YouTube isn't really like the place to have this kind of discourse, but if you have something to say, I appreciate it if you leave me some feedback. I'll read what you have to say. I might have a brief comment, but I'm not trying to spark any sort of, you know, flaming debate in the comment section or anything like that. But thank you for your time. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you found some value in it. Take care.